Welcome back to Mama's Learning Corner. I am Lauren, and I'm so glad that you have joined me today to talk about homeschool curriculum. That's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to share with you my 2 most important tips ever in buying homeschool curriculum. And this is where you should start. And if you're a new homeschool parent, I definitely want you to listen to these 2 tips. If you're joining me for the first time and you just stumbled upon my channel, let me just introduce myself to you quickly. I am Lauren, and I have 5 children from 17, a senior, all the way down to a little 5-year-old kindergartner with 3 girls in between in middle school, high school. So we have 12th, 10th, 8th, 6th grade, and kindergarten here at our house this year. And it is wild and wonderful all at the same time. Very, very busy. But we are in our 13th year of homeschooling, and I have learned a lot over the years about curriculum. Thought I knew a lot in that first 3 to 5 years of homeschool, but middle school and high school, you just gain more experience. So I want to share these 2 tips with you today, and I think they can maybe give you some freedom in making choices when it comes to homeschool curriculum. So I'm going to share the 2 tips with you first, and then I'm going to give you kind of some suggestions on how to move forward with that, like in practical terms. Okay, so tip number 1 is choose the curriculum that you will actually do. Choose the curriculum that you will actually do. And then tip number 2, when choosing homeschool curriculum, is to choose the curriculum that will foster a relationship with you and your child. And I'll explain both of these. So let's talk tip number 1 first. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Choose the curriculum that will get done. Well, in my years of experience, especially in those early years, I would choose curriculum as if I was only teaching one child. As if I had all day long to do these very teacher-intense type things. When in reality, in those early years, my older 4 are little stair steps. So I would have a child in 3rd grade, a child in 1st grade, a child in pre-K, and then like a toddler. That type of situation is just not conducive to very heavy teacher-led, mother-led schooling all day long. I mean, because there's only one of me, right? So it really took me years to figure out that I had to look at different types of curriculum that I didn't think was ideal because there's only so much time in the day and there's only one of me. So, for example, I loved the idea of first language lessons by the Well-Trained Mind. But the whole thing is homeschool mom, sitting beside the child doing every single sentence together, except for the copy work. But even the copy work, I needed to be right sitting beside my child to do, because the handwriting, I needed to work on handwriting. So I really love the idea of first language lessons, but there was 0 independence there, and I needed there to be. Another example, I wrote down a few examples of things that we've done in years past. Sunlight. Love the idea of sunlight for the young years. But it was a lot of reading. And even though we were at the time a read aloud family, it was still too much just even for us. I felt this constant struggle to abide by that checklist. I didn't have enough confidence yet as a homeschool mom to be able to put the checklist aside and do what was tolerable, for us each day. Another example was IEW. I love IEW writing. I think it has so many good quality points to it. Lots of good concepts there. But the problem with it was that I had to teach myself so much before we could ever do anything together as a group. So, but let me make one point about IEW. It has really morphed through the years into something much more manageable for the homeschool parent. When I used it initially, I think my oldest was 4th grade, and he's now a senior. So it's much more parent-friendly in terms of teaching. So there's not as much that I have to learn myself before we can actually implement. But those types of things were not getting done in my homeschool. Either we weren't doing writing, or we weren't doing science, or, fill in the blank, whatever it was. And I realized for whatever reason, and it's varied throughout the years, we were not getting a particular curriculum completed. So let me say this. All homeschool mothers have ideas about what we consider to be the ideal or perfect curriculum. And they probably are, in a lot of ways. But if we only do it once a week, when it's a 5-day-a-week thing, for example, math, if you feel like you've picked the perfect math curriculum, but you're only doing it once or twice a week, that's not helpful. It's not helpful. If you've picked the perfect curriculum because it fits your child's learning style perfectly and it was cheap, that's two pluses right there, right? But it's sitting on the shelf, then it's not worth doing. So you really need to evaluate. I needed to really evaluate my standards. What was most beneficial to me? Was it best to have the perfect curriculum and to say that we were able to do that? Or was it better to have a not as ideal curriculum and implement it and complete it? And I don't mean by completing the whole book or, whatever, but completing it to the standards of this is doable when we have a school day. That's what I needed it to be. You can have the perfect music curriculum. You can have the perfect science curriculum with excellent activities and experiments. But if it literally stays on the shelf, then it's not helpful to anyone and you've wasted money. And plus there's that guilt of never getting to it. So at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about some options, practical options of what to do, like how to get out of that and maybe switch your thinking a little bit. Okay, the second tip was to choose curriculum that is going to foster relationship with you and your child. I have all ranges of personalities among my children in my home. Some are much more studious than others. Some school comes more easily to them than others, academics. So this is really on a case-by-case individual basis. What I mean by fostering relationship, if you are using a curriculum that induces tears every single time, or disgust, or really doesn't foster a love of learning, it's time to look at something else. I have a child that gives me a lot of pushback, just in general. But then when you add school on top of that, schoolwork on top of the normal amount of pushback, and all of this is normal child stuff. But when you add school on top of that, something has to give somewhere. So if it's a curriculum that I can do differently, or if I can choose a curriculum where maybe I'm not quite as involved, I give guidance, but it's not like a daily teaching type of thing, that might be a better fit. Above all, I want relationship with my children. Above all, as their mother, as their homeschool mother, as their teacher, I want, at the end of the day, for us to love each other dearly. And if I can make that happen by choosing a curriculum that may be second or third or even fifth on my list, I'm going to do that I'm going to choose relationship every single time over ideal curriculum. So here's an example of what I mean. I have a child that needed not quite as much time with me this year. We could afford one online class for her. And so she's in that and is doing beautifully, just doing beautifully. I'm so proud of her. And some of her other curriculum choices I chose because they're a little bit more independent. Now, she's in the middle school years, so I feel middle school, in my experience, has been pretty heavy mama driven. You have elementary, where there's very heavy mama driven. You have 4 through 6, where I can pull back just a little bit. And then 6th, 7th, and 8th, and on up into high school, it's more mama driven. There's more teaching that needs to occur. There's more one-on-one conversations that need to take place. However, with this particular child, I chose more independent curriculum where I could, simply because she needed a little bit of space from me, and I could tell that. And my relationship with her is much more important to me than being dogmatic and saying that she has to do exactly what I say in this curriculum. She needed a little bit more freedom. So the things I chose were very intentional so she could have that. And that was a good choice. That was a good choice. Okay, so then the question becomes, based on those two criteria, one, choose the curriculum that'll get done, and number two, does this foster a relationship with my child? So based on that two criteria, which I consider to be the most important for our family, how do you choose curriculum then? Okay, so I try and pinpoint exactly what the reason is that our science curriculum isn't getting done, or this particular math curriculum isn't getting done. Try and get down to the nitty-gritty reason. Okay, well, I need something that is less mom intensive, or I need something that's a different learning style. That's why it's not getting done. So pinpoint the reason, do a lot of research, make a list of, I don't know, 3 to 5 curricula that would actually work, right? Based on whatever your reason was. So if you needed to be less mom intensive, research 3 to 5 math curricula that are more independent. Math Mammoth, Math You See with the videos, Saxon with the videos. So make a list of 3 to 5. Then if price is an issue, start eliminating things based on price. And then see where you land. Also, make sure you put in learning style and your own philosophy in that list when you're curating that list. Make sure to add those things. If your child has dysgraphia, you don't want a really heavy writing focus, right? If you're a young Earth creationist, you don't want to choose science curriculum. You don't want science curriculum on your list that speaks to evolution. So you can tailor the list to your needs. And then eliminate, and that'll help narrow down your choices. So very often I start looking at curriculum based on price because, we just have a pretty tight homeschool budget. So price is a huge factor. However, it's much cheaper for me and cheaper in the long run if I can make a good decision about curriculum the first time around and not have to switch 2 months into the school year or after the first semester and have to buy something brand new. It's much better if I can think through it very carefully based on my first 2 criteria and then think about price. I can eliminate, or I can look on eBay, or actually I have a whole nother video about how I choose curriculum when I start narrowing down based on price. I'll link to that. At the end of the day, the most important thing to me is my relationship with my children. Yes, it is so important to homeschool them and homeschool them consistently and school them well. But more important than anything else to me is my relationship with them, because that is what is everlasting. I can't point them to Christ if we don't have a good relationship. I can, but it's not as effective. I can't disciple them. I can't speak into their lives if we don't have a good relationship. And I don't want homeschool curriculum, to be a stumbling block to that. So I try and take that piece away. There's that saying that, you have to fight your battles with your children, right? You can't make everything a battle. And that looks very different in the toddler years, where you're saying no, 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 right? To the upper elementary, middle school, high school years. You definitely can't make everything a battle then. There needs to be an element of trust and ease there. And that's what I want with my children. So we can have good relationship, not only through their homeschool lives, but through their whole lives. And so one way that I really work on that is choosing curriculum carefully. So it's just not another battle for us to fight. There's already so many of those. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on curriculum. What are your main criteria in choosing curriculum? Have you found that you had to switch because it was ruining a relationship between you and your child? I think that's really important for homeschool mothers to talk about that. There's so much more to the dynamic of homeschool mom and child than just learning, like book learning and academic learning. There's so much more there. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave them below so we can chit chat and brainstorm and just encourage one another. I'd appreciate it if you like and subscribe to my channel, and then I'll show up in your home feed when you're on YouTube. And I'd love for you to share this video with anybody that you feel like it could be an encouragement. All right, thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.